All right, so maybe you're thinking about picking up a Panasonic Lumix FZ80D in 2025.
In 2025.
I know, it's not exactly brand new,
Oh,
right?
great.
But something about this camera just keeps drawing people in.
Yeah.
And today, we're going to unpack exactly what that something is.
Okay.
We're using a really cool 2025 review here from Lens Clear by Leo Liang.
Oh, cool.
He's a photographer, total gearhead. So is the FZ80D still relevant today?
Yeah, that's the question, isn't it?
Yeah, that's what we're here to find out.
Let's find out. What's interesting about the FZ80D is that it's what we call a bridge camera.
Okay.
So think of it like a bridge between like your simple point and shoots
Yeah.
and then your more complex DSLR or mirrorless cameras.
Right.
Even in 2025, what makes this camera stand out is the zoom.
Okay.
60x optical zoom, to be exact.
60x?
60x.
That's a lot.
It gives you a 20 to 1200 millimeter equivalent focal length.
I was going to say, that's like having like a whole camera bag of lenses in one like compact package.
Exactly.
So like super versatile.
Super versatile.
So imagine capturing wide landscapes and then boom, zooming in to get detailed shots of wildlife.
Yeah.
All with the same camera. That's got to be like the main appeal of these bridge cameras.
Right. Versatility is definitely key.
Yeah.
But there's more to the FZ80D than just zoom.
Okay. What else we got?
You get an 18.1 megapixel sensor.
Right.
Which means you can capture sharp images with enough detail for decent-sized prints. Plus, you can shoot 4K video, snag those action shots with 10 frames per second burst shooting.
Oh, wow.
And it has Panasonic's Power OIS, which is their image stabilization.
Right.
Which you'll really appreciate at those longer zoom lengths.
I bet.
Yeah.
And did I mention the built-in Wi-Fi?
Oh, yeah, that's pretty standard now.
I know. We might take it for granted now, but this camera came out in 2017, you know?
Yeah, back in the day.
Long before Wi-Fi was, like, standard on cameras.
Right.
Okay, so I'm seeing why you might be interested in this FZ80D. But there's another contender from that era.
Oh, okay.
I don't bring up.
Okay.
The Canon SX70 HS.
The SX70.
Does that ring a bell?
Absolutely. The Canon SX70 HS is another popular super zoom.
Okay.
So let's break down some of the key differences.
All right, let's do it.
The SX70 HS actually beats the FZ80D in zoom.
Oh, really?
It has a 65x zoom.
Wow.
Versus the FZ80D's 60x.
Okay.
Though in practical use, you might not even notice the difference.
Right.
When it comes to image quality, they're both pretty solid performers.
Okay. That's what I was kind of curious about. Are there any, like, noticeable differences there?
Yeah, you know, some reviewers, including Leo Liang, say the FZ80D might be a tad better in low light.
Interesting.
The SX70 HS has a higher resolution electronic viewfinder, which is helpful when you're shooting in bright sunlight. But the FZ80D has a touchscreen LCD.
Oh, okay.
And for navigating menus or selecting focus points, lots of photographers prefer a touchscreen these days.
I feel that. Touchscreens are definitely, like, more intuitive.
Yeah, for sure.
So it's a trade-off there.
Exactly.
It seems like they both have their, like, advantages and disadvantages.
Definitely. And let's not forget the price.
Oh, right, yeah.
Both cameras are super budget-friendly in 2025.
Nice.
But the FZ80D might be a bit cheaper.
Even better.
Ultimately, it comes down to your priorities. Do you want a higher resolution viewfinder?
Yeah.
Or do you prefer that touchscreen interface? It's up to you.
You get to choose.
Exactly.
Okay, so even though these cameras came out way back in 2017, they're still relevant today. It's not all about having the latest and greatest, is it?
Not at all.
All right, let's get into the, like, nitty-gritty of the FZ80D now.
Okay.
I know specs can be overwhelming.
Yeah.
But they tell us what makes the camera tick.
Right. So the FZ80D uses a 12.3-inch MOS sensor.
Okay.
Now, that's quite small compared to what you'd find in, like, DSLRs or mirrorless cameras. Sensor size can really impact what a camera's good at and not so good at.
Okay, so I'm sensing this is important.
Yeah.
What's the deal with sensor size?
Okay. So think of it this way. A larger sensor is like a bigger bucket for collecting light.
Okay.
That means it performs better in low light. It can capture more detail and less of that kind of grainy noise that you sometimes see in dim conditions.
Yeah.
Now, the FZ80D's smaller sensor, it might struggle a bit in low light.
Okay.
But that's the compromise you make for having such an impressive zoom in a compact body.
Makes sense. They had to squeeze that huge zoom lens in somewhere, right?
Right.
Speaking of the lens, Leo seems to be pretty impressed with it in his review.
Yeah.
He calls the 60x zoom Wonderful.
It is pretty wonderful.
Is it really all that?
Oh, the lens is truly a marvel. It has a focal range of 20 to 1200 millimeters, which, as you can imagine, gives you so much flexibility in what you can shoot.
Yeah.
And, of course, the Power OIS image stabilization is essential for combating camera shake, especially at those extreme zoom lengths.
I can imagine, like, how shaky things could get at 1200 millimeters.
Oh, yeah.
I'm guessing you need a tripod for those, like, super telephoto shots?
A tripod is definitely recommended.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so image quality is good in daylight, but what about low light? Does the FZ80D hold up?
Well, Leah's review highlights that the FZ80D produces good quality images in daylight.
Okay.
Colors are accurate, details are pretty sharp.
Yeah.
But as we talked about, the smaller sensor,
Right.
it does show its limitations in low light.
Okay.
At higher ISOs, you'll notice more noise in the images.
Gotcha.
It's something to be aware of
Right.
if you frequently shoot in dim conditions.
I'm sure battery life is something that our listener is, like, wondering about.
Yeah, for sure.
How does the FZ80D perform in, like, real-world use? Can you get through a whole day of shooting on a single charge?
Well, Leo's real-world testing showed that the battery is pretty good for a day trip.
Okay.
It gives you around 330 shots on a single charge, which is kind of the standard measurement.
Right.
Of course, real-world usage will vary depending on, how you use the camera.
Yeah, for sure.
Like if you're shooting a lot of video or reviewing images on the LCD screen a lot, those things will all drain the battery faster.
It's always a good idea to have a backup battery just in case.
A spare battery is a must-have.
Yeah, especially if you're on, like, a longer shoot or something.
Exactly.
Okay, so we've covered some of the basics, but are you ready to, like, dive even deeper into the FZ80D?
Oh, yeah. We've barely scratched the surface.
I want to know everything about this camera.
Right.
From its, like, hidden features to the best way to actually use it.
Okay, so first step.
Yeah.
Get familiar with the FZ80D's manual.
Okay.
There's a wealth of information in there. From understanding the different zoom modes to, like, customizing the camera settings to your liking.
Oh, the good old manual.
Yeah.
Sometimes we forget about those, huh?
I know, right?
It seems like there's so much more to explore with this camera.
There is.
What else can our listener do to really unlock the FZ80D's potential?
Well, the FZ80D might be an older model, but there's a whole community of people out there who still use it and love it.
Oh, cool.
Tapping into the wisdom of online forums, especially Reddit, can be incredibly helpful.
Reddit is a treasure trove for photographers, I swear.
It is.
I can already imagine all the tips and tricks you could find on there.
Oh, yeah.
But before we, like, go down that rabbit hole, let's circle back to that sensor size question.
Okay.
We know it's a key trade-off for the FZ80D's compact size.
Right.
And its powerful zoom. But how does it really impact things like crop factor, depth of field, and dynamic range?
Yeah.
These terms can sound a bit technical, I know, but trust me, they're worth understanding.
They are.
It's all about understanding, like, the tools that you're working with,
Right.
So you can make informed decisions and really get the most out of your photography.
Exactly. Welcome back to our deep dive into the Panasonic Lumix FZ80D.
I'm ready for more.
All right.
We left off talking about sensor size.
Yes.
And how it affects things like crop factor, depth of field, dynamic range.
Right.
Where should we start unpacking all of that?
Well, let's start with crop factor.
Okay.
It's a bit of a head scratcher for a lot of people, but it's actually pretty simple because the FZ80D's sensor is smaller than a full frame sensor.
Right.
It's like you're only taking a smaller section of the image.
Okay.
That's the crop.
So it's kind of like zooming in digitally.
Yeah.
But it's happening because of the sensor size.
Right.
Not because you're actually, like, adjusting the zoom on the lens.
Exactly.
Gotcha.
And the FZ80D has a crop factor of about 5.6x. So that means a 20mm lens on this camera will give you a similar field of view to a 112mm lens on a full frame camera.
Wow. That's a pretty big difference.
It is.
So the crop factor is kind of working in your favor here, right?
It is, in a way.
It's helping you get that, like, super telephoto reach with a smaller lens.
Exactly.
Lever.
That's right.
Okay.
The crop factor is part of what enables the FZ80D's incredible zoom range in such a compact body.
Right.
But of course, there's a trade-off.
Always a trade-off.
A smaller sensor generally means a larger depth of field.
Okay.
Which means more of your scene will be in focus.
Now, you've got me curious about depth of field.
All right.
I know it has something to do with, like, how blurry the background is.
Yes.
But how does the sensor size come into play there?
So imagine you're taking portrait, and you want that beautiful blurry background to make your subject pop.
The bokeh.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
That's what we call a shallow depth of field.
Yeah.
But the FZ80D, with its smaller sensor, it tends to have a deeper depth of field, meaning more of the scene is in focus,
Gotcha.
even when you use a wide aperture.
So if I'm understanding correctly, with the FZ80D, it's going to be trickier to get those, like, artsy shots.
It can be.
With the, like, blurred backgrounds?
Yeah, it's definitely more challenging with a smaller sensor.
Okay.
However, a larger depth of field can be advantageous in other situations.
Right.
Like, for example, landscapes, where you want everything from the foreground to the background to be sharp.
That makes sense.
Right.
So it's all about knowing the strengths and limitations of your gear and using them to your advantage.
Exactly.
Now, what about dynamic range?
Yep.
I've heard that's important for capturing detail in both highlights and shadows.
Yes.
But I'm not sure I fully understand it.
So dynamic range is all about the range of tones that your camera can capture.
Right.
A wider dynamic range means you can capture more detail in both the brightest and darkest areas of an image.
Okay.
Think of a scene with a bright sky and dark shadows.
Right.
A camera with a wider dynamic range will be able to capture more detail in both the sky and the shadows, resulting in a more balanced and realistic image.
So if I'm shooting like a sunset, for example, a camera with a wider dynamic range would be able to capture like the vibrant colors of the sky without making like the foreground too dark.
Exactly.
That's the idea.
Gotcha. Now, a smaller sensor like the one in the FZ80D has a narrower dynamic range, which means you might lose some detail in the highlights or shadows, especially in high contrast situations.
Okay, so to sum it up, sensor size has a big impact, like camera's capabilities.
Yeah.
It's a trade-off between portability, zoom, and image quality.
Exactly.
Right.
Now, let's shift gears a bit and talk about another important aspect of the FZ80D.
Okay.
The 60x zoom lens. I know we've mentioned it before.
We have.
But it's worth delving into how to actually use it effectively.
Yeah, all ears. That zoom range is incredibly tempting.
Oh, yeah.
But I imagine it takes some, like, skill to handle, you know?
It does.
What tips did Leo share in his review?
Well, first of all, it's important to understand the different zoom modes.
Okay.
The FZ80D offers optical zoom, which is the true zoom using the lens's optics digital zoom, which essentially crops the image and enlarges it electronically.
Gotcha.
And intelligent zoom, which is kind of a hybrid approach that tries to maintain image quality while extending the zoom range.
So optical zoom is the best quality.
Yes.
Digital zoom should be avoided if possible.
If you can, yes.
And intelligent zoom is somewhere in between.
That's a good way to think about it.
Okay, cool.
Now, when you're using that zoom, especially at those longer focal lengths, stability is key.
I can imagine how shaky things could get when you're zoomed in all the way to 1200 millimeters.
Oh, yeah.
What's the best way to, like, keep things steady?
Yeah. The FZ80D's Power OIS image stabilization system does a great job of reducing camera shake.
Yeah.
But even with stabilization, a tripod is your best friend for those super telephoto shots.
I bet.
It will make a world of difference in the sharpness of your images.
So a tripod is a must-have accessory.
Pretty much.
For anyone who's, like, serious about using that 60x zoom.
Yes.
Any other, like, tips for getting the most out of it?
Practice smooth zooming techniques.
Great.
Avoid any jerky movements that could introduce blur.
Yeah.
It's all about finesse and control.
Gotcha.
And remember, sometimes less is more.
Right.
Don't be afraid to zoom out and capture a wider perspective.
Good advice.
Now let's talk about autofocus.
Right.
We mentioned earlier that the FZ80D's autofocus isn't the fastest on the market.
Right.
What are some things to keep in mind when using it? The FZ80D's autofocus is perfectly adequate for everyday shooting.
Okay.
But if you're photographing fast-moving subjects, like sports or wildlife, you might notice some limitations.
Okay.
You'll want to get to know the different autofocus modes and when to use them.
Can you give us a quick rundown of the main autofocus modes?
Sure.
And, like, when they're most useful?
Absolutely.
Right.
One of the most helpful modes is face eye detection.
Okay.
As the name suggests, it detects and focuses on faces and eyes,
Yeah.
making it ideal for portraits.
Right.
It's a lifesaver for capturing those candid moments when you don't have time to fiddle with manual focus.
That sounds super handy for, like, those unpredictable moments when you need to react quickly.
Exactly.
Okay, cool.
What about when you're shooting a moving subject?
Yeah.
Like, say, a bird in flight.
Right.
Or a running child. For those situations, you'll want to try tracking AF.
Okay.
You select the subject, and the camera will track its movement, keeping it in focus even as it moves around the frame.
So tracking AF kind of takes the guesswork out of focusing on moving subjects?
It does.
It's fantastic.
The FZ80D also has custom multi-AF, which gives you more control over the autofocus points.
Right.
You can select specific areas of the scene to focus on, which is great for more deliberate and creative photography.
Okay, so there's a whole range of autofocus modes to explore.
There is.
Experiment with them and see what works best for different situations.
Exactly.
Awesome.
Now, let's move on to another exciting feature of the FZ80D.
Okay.
It's 4K video recording capabilities.
Ooh, yes.
Back in 2017, this was pretty cutting-edge technology.
I remember when 4K was like, a hot new thing.
I know, right?
But is it still a big deal in 2025?
It is.
I mean, shouldn't we be talking about, like, 8K by now or something?
Well, technology certainly moves fast, but 4K is still very relevant. It offers 4 times the detail of full HD, resulting in incredibly sharp and clear footage.
Nice.
You also get more flexibility in post-production.
Oh, how so?
You can crop and zoom in on your footage without sacrificing quality.
Oh, that's nice.
So even though 4K isn't the newest kid on the block, it still delivers impressive quality.
That's good to hear.
What about audio?
Oh, yeah, good point.
Is the FZ80D's built-in mic good enough for recording videos? The built-in microphone is fine for casual use.
Okay.
But if you're serious about video quality, an external microphone will give you much better results.
Makes sense. You don't want the audio to let down your, like, stunning 4K visuals.
Exactly.
So the FZ80D is a capable video camera.
Yes.
But there's always room for improvement with an external mic.
Exactly.
Correct.
And remember, the FZ80D's manual is a great resource for understanding all the different video recording settings and how to customize them to your needs.
Speaking of the manual, let's talk about why it's such an important tool for any photographer.
Yeah.
I have to admit, I don't always reach for the manual first.
Right.
I tend to just kind of jump in and start using the camera. But I'm guessing there's a lot of valuable information hidden in those pages.
There is.
What are some of the, like, key benefits of actually reading the manual?
The manual is like a treasure map.
Oh, okay.
Guiding you to hidden features and advanced settings you might not otherwise discover.
Give me an example of something I might learn from the FZ80D's manual.
Okay.
That I wouldn't just figure out on my own.
Well, you might discover how to customize the camera's buttons and settings to better suit your shooting style. Or you might learn about advanced autofocus techniques or hidden video recording options.
Oh, cool.
It's all about unlocking the camera's full potential and making it work for you.
So the manual is like having a personal, like, photography tutor.
It is.
Built right into the camera.
Right there in your hands.
It's all about taking the time to actually read it.
Yeah.
And don't be afraid to, like, revisit the manual as you become more familiar with the camera, right?
Absolutely.
You'll probably discover new things each time you read it.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
I'm already feeling inspired to, like, dust off the FZ80D's manual and see what hidden gems I can find.
Now, in addition to the manual, another valuable resource for FZ80D users is the online community.
Oh, right.
Places like Reddit can be incredibly helpful for getting tips, tricks, advice from other photographers who use the same camera.
Reddit is like a virtual photography club, right?
It is.
What kind of information can our listener find in those forums?
You can find everything from user reviews and real-world examples to troubleshooting tips and accessory recommendations.
Gotcha.
It's a great way to learn from others' experiences and get the most out of your FZ80D.
So it's like having a network of FZ80D experts at your fingertips. You've convinced me. I'm definitely checking out those Reddit forums.
I think you'll be impressed by the wealth of knowledge and the sense of community you'll find there. It's a great example of how technology can connect us and help us learn from each other.
Now, let's revisit that question we posed earlier. Is the FZ80D still a good camera in 2025?
That's the big question.
We've explored its features, its strengths, its limitations, but I'm curious to hear your final verdict.
After diving deep into the FZ80D, I can confidently say that it still holds its own in 2025.
Really?
It's not the newest camera on the block,
Right.
but it offers a unique combination of features and value that's hard to beat.
So it's a camera that can, like, stand the test of time.
I think so.
What makes it so enduring?
Well, for starters, that 60x zoom lens is still incredibly impressive even by today's standards.
Yeah.
You get an incredible amount of versatility in a compact package.
Plus, the image quality is surprisingly good for a camera of its age, especially in good light.
Especially in good light.
And let's not forget the affordability.
Right.
You can pick up an FZ80D.
You can.
For a fraction of the cost of a new mirrorless camera.
Exactly.
That's a key factor.
It is.
The FZ80D is a great option.
It is.
For, like, budget-conscious photographers.
Yeah.
Who want a lot of bang for their buck.
A lot of bang for your buck.
But it's not just about the price, right?
Right.
It's also a very user-friendly camera.
It is.
Making it perfect for beginners.
Exactly.
So it's a camera that can appeal to a wide range of photographers.
It can.
Who would you say is the, like, ideal FZ80D user in 2025?
Well, I think it's perfect for anyone who values versatility, affordability, and ease of use.
Right.
Travel photographers will love the all-in-one zoom lens.
Yeah.
Nature and wildlife enthusiasts will appreciate the ability to capture distant subjects. And beginners will find it easy to learn and grow with. It sounds like the FZ80D has a lot to offer.
It does.
Even in a world dominated by newer, flashier cameras.
Right, right. But before we wrap up this part of our deep dive, I have one more question for you.
Okay.
We've talked about the FZ80D's strengths.
Yes.
But let's be honest. No camera's perfect.
No.
What are some of the things potential buyers should be aware of before investing in an FZ80D in 2025?
Right.
What are the potential deal breakers?
That's a great question.
Yeah.
I think the biggest thing to consider is the sensor size.
Okay.
We've talked about how the smaller sensor affects low light performance, depth of field dynamic range.
Yeah.
If you're a professional photographer who needs to shoot in challenging lighting conditions or demands the ultimate image quality, then the FZ80D might not be the best fit.
So it's all about knowing your needs and priorities.
Exactly.
The FZ80D might not be for everyone,
right?
But for the right photographer, it can be a fantastic tool.
This can be.
For creativity and exploration.
For sure.
Exactly.
And don't forget the importance of getting to know your gear inside and out.
Right.
Read the manual, experiment with the settings, join the online community to share your experiences and learn from others.
Cool.
With a little effort,
yeah,
you can unlock the FZ80D's full potential
nice.
And capture some amazing images.
That's inspiring advice.
Now, as we head into the final part of our deep dive, I'm excited to explore more about the FZ80D's potential and how you can make the most of it in 2025.
Let's do it.
Welcome back to our deep dive into the Panasonic Lumix FZ80D. We've covered a lot of ground, from that impressive 60x zoom lens to those, trade-offs of the smaller sensor. Now I want to get practical. If I were to pick up an FZ80D today, what are some of the must-have accessories I should consider?
Accessories, they can really enhance your shooting experience and help you get the most out of your camera.
For the FZ80D, there are a few key things I'd recommend.
All right, let's hear it. What's at the top of the list?
First and foremost, a good quality case is essential. It'll protect your investment from bumps, scratches, and the elements.
Yeah, for sure.
You have a few options here. Camera bags, soft cases, and hard cases.
Okay, so many choices.
Yeah.
How do I know which type of case is right for me?
Well, it depends on your needs and shooting style.
Okay.
If you're carrying a lot of gear, like extra lenses or a flash, a camera bag is the way to go.
Makes sense.
They come in all shapes and sizes, from backpacks to shoulder bags.
A camera bag is like a mobile studio,
It is.
For photographers who need to be prepared for anything.
Exactly.
What if I'm just looking for something more compact and lightweight?
Okay.
For everyday use.
For those grab-and-go moments, a soft case or holster is perfect.
Okay.
It provides basic protection and keeps your camera within easy reach. And if you need maximum protection, like if you're traveling or shooting in extreme conditions, a hard case is the most durable option.
So case selection is all about finding the right balance between protection, convenience, and portability.
I think that's well said.
Now let's talk about another essential accessory, Spare batteries.
Oh, yes. Spare batteries are a lifesaver.
I've learned that lesson the hard way. I can't tell you how many times I've missed a shot because my battery died at the worst possible moment.
We've all been there. The FZ80D's battery life is pretty good, but having a spare or two, especially if you're traveling or shooting for extended periods, is crucial.
Definitely worth the investment for peace of mind.
For sure.
Any tips for maximizing battery life?
Absolutely. Simple things like dimming the LCD screen, turning off Wi-Fi when you're not using it, and using the viewfinder instead of the LCD for reviewing images can all help extend your battery life.
Great tips. It's those little things that can make a big difference.
Yeah, they add up.
Okay, so we've got a case and spare batteries. What else should be on my FZ80D accessory shopping list?
While not essential, a few other accessories can enhance your shooting experience.
Okay.
A lens cleaning kit is always a good idea to keep your lens free from dust and smudges. And if you're planning on shooting a lot of videos, an external microphone will drastically improve your audio quality.
Those are definitely good additions to the kit. I'm starting to see how you can really personalize the FZ80D with accessories to fit your specific needs.
Exactly. You can build a setup that works best for you and the type of photography you're passionate about.
Okay, so we've talked about accessories, but before we wrap up this deep dive, I want to circle back to a question we touched on earlier. Is the FZ80D's smaller sensor a deal breaker?
Ah, yes, that's the big question.
We've discussed the limitations in terms of low light performance, depth of field, and dynamic range, but I'm still curious to hear your perspective on this.
It's a valid concern. It really depends on your priorities and expectations. If you're a professional photographer who needs the absolute best image quality or frequently shoots in challenging lighting conditions, then a camera with a larger sensor might be a better investment.
Okay.
But for many photographers, the FZ80D sensor is more than capable.
Oh, I'm hearing a but coming.
But for everyday shooting, especially in good light, the FZ80D produces excellent images. The colors are accurate, the details are sharp, and the zoom lens gives you an incredible amount of creative flexibility.
Right.
And let's not forget the convenience and affordability of this camera.
Yeah, for sure. So it's a matter of weighing the trade-offs.
Yeah.
You gain portability, zoom, and affordability, but you sacrifice some image quality, particularly in low light.
Exactly. It's all about understanding the strengths and limitations of your gear and making informed decisions based on your needs and shooting style.
That's such a valuable reminder. I think sometimes we get caught up in the pursuit of the latest and greatest technology, but it's more important to choose the tools that best support our creative vision.
Couldn't agree more.
And for many photographers, the FZ80D is still a fantastic choice in 2025. It's a camera that empowers you to explore, experiment, and capture the world around you.
Well said.
And that brings our deep dive into the Panasonic Lumix FZ80D to a close.
Wow.
It's been a fascinating journey.
It has.
Exploring this camera's capabilities and why it continues to resonate with photographers even years after its release.
It's a classic for a reason.
It really is.
Yeah. It's been a pleasure sharing my insights with you.
The pleasure is all mine.
I hope this deep dive has inspired you to take a closer look at the FZ80D and consider its potential for your own photographic adventures.
I know I've learned a lot, and I'm sure our listener has too. So to our listener, we encourage you to explore further, to experiment, and to discover if the Panasonic Lumix FZ80D might be the perfect creative companion for you, even in 2025.
It just might be.
It just might be. And as always, happy shooting.
Happy shooting.